Incident Report number 7741-C, filed by Greth Vorathan, Senior Instructor, Predator Combat Division Station, Meridian Deep Station. Classification: Active Review. Status: Ongoing. Someone explain this. Entry 1, 0600 Station Time. The paperwork error originated at Intake, Deck 7. I have reviewed the clerk's terminal logs 3 times. What happened was this. A human intern named Rowan was scheduled to report to Deck 12, Section F, for requisition filing. Deck 12. Section F. A room with a desk, a stack of flimsy sheets, and no living things more dangerous than a mildly corroded data stylus. Due to a single transposed digit in her routing clearance, Deck 12 became Deck 7. She was issued a valid training badge and directed to the Predator Combat Division Gymnasium. The clerk did not look up from the terminal. The clerk did not notice. The clerk will be submitting their own report shortly. Rowan thanked the clerk. She thanked them cheerfully. Then she walked through the blast door with her clipboard tucked under one arm and her badge dangling from a lanyard she had already tangled around her wrist twice. I want to be clear about something before I continue. I have been an instructor in this division for 11 cycles. I have trained recruits from 14 species. I have never, in 11 cycles, seen a trainee enter my gymnasium and look around the room the way Rowan looked around the room. She looked like she was searching for a bathroom. Skyle, the Skelrix trainee assigned to today's session, was already on the mat when she arrived. He was mid-warm-up, mandibles clicking softly to himself, antennae twitching in that focused way his species does before physical exertion. He is an eager student. Nervous, but eager. His chitin gleamed under the overhead lights as he cycled through stretches, compound eyes tracking the room out of habit. I was standing at the edge of the simulation pit, reviewing the drill parameters on my wrist terminal. The pit's holographic. Generators hummed behind me, waiting. The reinforced mats beneath my feet carried the faint scorch marks of last week's live fire exercise. Standard conditions. Then the gymnasium door opened, and Rowan walked in. She was small. Humans usually are, relative to most species on this station, but she carried herself with a particular kind of smallness, as though the room were simply too large, and she had not yet decided whether to care about that. Her uniform was gray and too big for her frame. The sleeves rolled up unevenly. Her dark hair was sticking up on the left side in a way that suggested she had either just woken up or had run into something. She held a clipboard against her chest with both hands and blinked at the gymnasium ceiling for a long moment.
Sorry, could you please tell me where the main office is?
Then she looked at me. "Hi," she said. "I think I'm supposed to be somewhere else." Her badge was valid. I checked it. The clearance codes matched the training roster for the day. There was no reason, no procedural reason, for me to turn her away. I did not turn her away. This was my error. I own it. I assumed she was a late arrival. Late arrivals happen. I told her to drop her clipboard, step onto the mat, and pay attention. She looked at the clipboard. She looked at me. She looked at Skyle, who had stopped stretching and was staring at her with his compound eyes slightly wider than usual, antennae beginning to twitch. "Okay," Rowan said. She set the clipboard down on the floor, not on the mat, on the actual floor beside a drainage grate, and walked to the center of the training area with her hands in her pockets. Skyle's mandibles clicked once, a sharp, questioning sound. I began the lesson. The first exercise was basic. I threw a training rod at Skyle. He was meant to dodge. It is the simplest drill in the curriculum. Read the trajectory, move your body, don't get hit. Skyle dodged cleanly. Good form. Antennae upright, pleased with himself. I threw the next rod at Rowan. She did not dodge. The rod struck her in the shoulder. She stumbled sideways, caught her balance by grabbing the edge of a supply crate, and the supply crate, which I had not noticed was unlocked, swung open. A rack of training equipment inside shifted. A weighted net coiled at the top of the rack, unspooled and dropped directly onto the training rod I had just thrown, pinning it to the mat before I could retrieve it. Rowan looked at the net, then at me. "Sorry," she said. "Did I do that right?" Scale's antennae drooped flat against his head. My throat, I am told, went white. The next 12 minutes followed a pattern I have spent considerable time trying to reconstruct in this report, because I cannot find the logic in it. I threw. She did not dodge. Something nearby moved, fell, swung, or collapsed in a way that neutralized the threat anyway, every single time. The supply crate produced a loose panel that deflected a rod mid-air. A ceiling rig swayed when she bumped into it and dropped a padding mat precisely where she needed to not be hit. She tripped over her own feet, grabbed a wall-mounted equipment hook for balance, and the hook, which had been holding a training shield, released it at exactly the angle needed to block the rod Skyle was simultaneously trying to dodge around. Skyle was no longer dodging. Skyle was standing perfectly still, with his mandibles locked open and his antennae pressed so flat they were nearly invisible against the back of his narrow black head. I stopped the drill. I stood there, tail motionless against the mat, and I looked at Rowan, who was brushing a bit of dust off her oversized sleeve. "Are you all right?" she asked me. "You look kind of red." My throat was crimson. I was aware of this. I could feel it. I opened my mouth to ask her to identify herself, properly, formally, with credentials, when she shifted her weight, leaned against the nearest console panel to steady herself, and her elbow landed directly on the activation switch for the simulation pit. Behind me, the holographic generators powered up with a deep, resonant hum. The safety grid did not come on. Skyle's antennae twitched once, a single, sharp spasm, and then went completely still. I turned to look at the pit. The pit looked back. The simulation that activated was not the one I had programmed. I want to be precise about this, because the review board will ask. I had loaded a Tier 2 evasion scenario. Moderate difficulty, single threat, holographic only. What the pit generated was a Tier 4 full immersion predator scenario, the kind reserved for advanced candidates with 6 cycles of training behind them, the kind that uses environmental hazards, multiple threat vectors, and a threat model based on actual predator behavioral data. The safety grid, the system that prevents trainees from falling into the pit, that maintains a solid surface over the recessed arena until conditions are controlled, was offline. The activation panel Rowan had leaned on had toggled both the scenario and the grid in a single input. A fault in the console wiring that maintenance had flagged 3 weeks ago, and no one had repaired. The floor in front of us simply was not there anymore. The pit dropped away into a holographic canyon, dark stone walls, flickering bioluminescent moss, a narrow ledge running along 3 sides. The threat model materialized at the far end, a simulated Krath predator, 8 feet of coiled muscle and too many teeth, crouching on the ledge with its head low and its eyes fixed on us. It was not real. But the motion sensors were real, the environmental rig was real, and the drop was real. Skyle made a sound I had never heard a Skelrix make before. A high, thin clicking, rapid, uncontrolled, like his mandibles were vibrating. His antennae were flat. His compound eyes were locked on the ledge below, and he was not moving. I put myself between him and the edge. "Stay back," I said. "Do not move." Then I turned to find Rowan. She was already gone. She had not jumped. I want to clarify this. She had not leaped heroically into the pit or made any conscious decision to enter the scenario. What had happened, and I have reviewed the motion sensor data 4 times, is that she had been standing near the edge when the grid dropped, and her foot had slipped on the smooth surface where the solid floor used to be, and she had simply fallen. The drop was 6 meters. She landed on the holographic ledge, which was, in actuality, a padded impact surface with a thin layer of textured polymer over it, designed to absorb exactly this kind of fall. And she landed badly, on her side. She rolled once, twice, and came to a stop facing the simulated Krath predator. The Krath predator turned its head toward her. Rowan looked up at it from the ground. For 1 full second, nothing happened. Then Rowan sat up, brushed the polymer dust off her sleeve, and stood. She was not holding anything. She had no training equipment. She was 5'4", in an oversized gray uniform, with her hair sticking up on the wrong side. She was standing on a ledge 6 meters below the gymnasium floor, facing a holographic predator designed to simulate lethal threat behavior. And her expression, I have seen the visual log, was the same expression she had worn when she walked into my gymnasium looking for a bathroom. Mild confusion, faint inconvenience. The Krath model lunged. The lunge triggered its standard behavioral sequence: close distance, pin, end. The holographic predator covered the gap in under 2 seconds. Rowan did not move out of the way. She stumbled. Her foot caught on an uneven seam in the polymer surface, a known imperfection in the pit floor that has been in the maintenance logs since this simulation was installed. And she went down again, this time forward, onto her hands and knees. The Krath model's collision detection registered her position change and recalculated its trajectory mid-lunge. It overshot. It sailed over her. The environmental rig, responding to the model's momentum, triggered a secondary hazard. A section of the holographic cliff face shifted, releasing a simulated rockfall. The rocks were not real, but the debris rig that generated them was. A cluster of weighted polymer chunks rained down on the exact spot where the Krath model had landed. The model's threat assessment recalculated. It turned back toward Rowan. It lunged again. Rowan, still on her hands and knees, reached out and grabbed the edge of a loose panel in the pit floor, a maintenance access cover that should have been sealed but was not, and pulled herself forward. The panel came free in her hand. She did not throw it. She did not swing it. She simply held it in front of her as she scrambled to her feet, the way someone might hold a clipboard they had picked up off the floor. The Krath model's collision detection hit the panel. The impact registered as a solid obstruction at its attack vector. The behavioral AI, operating on predator logic, interpreted this as an immovable barrier and reclassified Rowan as a non-viable target. It turned away from her. It turned toward the ledge. It turned toward Skyle. Skyle's antennae came back to life. They shot upward, straight, rigid, vibrating, and his mandibles locked into a wide, frozen position that in Skelric's body language indicates pure, undiluted terror. I was already moving. I had a rope line from the edge equipment, and I was calculating the drop angle when Rowan, 6 meters below me, did something I still cannot fully account for. She threw the panel. Not at the Krath model. Not toward anything obvious. She threw it sideways, hard, at the base of one of the holographic generator housings mounted into the pit wall. The panel struck the housing at an angle that, according to the technical review, should have done nothing. The housing was armored. The panel was a maintenance cover, weighing roughly 4 kilograms. But the housing had a hairline fracture in its casing, a stress crack from a previous exercise. Undocumented. Unknown to anyone except, apparently, the universe. The panel hit the crack. The casing split. The generator housing shorted. Every holographic element in the pit died at once. The Krath model vanished. The canyon walls vanished. The bioluminescent moss vanished. The pit was just a pit again, a recessed arena with padded floors, and a girl standing in the middle of it, holding nothing, looking up at me and Skyle on the gymnasium floor above her. She blinked. "Is there a ladder?" she asked. "I really do need to find deck 12. Skyle's antennae drooped, slowly, all the way down. They did not come back up for the remainder of the incident. My throat cycled through crimson, yellow, and white in under 3 seconds. I am told this has never been documented in a Vorathan outside of a medical emergency. It was not a medical emergency. I am not entirely sure what it was. Rowan was extracted from the pit, escorted back to Deck 12, Section F, and placed in front of the requisition filing desk where she was originally meant to be. She thanked the escort. She sat down. She picked up a data stylus and began working through the stack of flimsy sheets as though she had simply been running late. Skyle requested a 30-minute rest period before his next session. His antennae did not fully recover for 2 hours. I have filed this report in full. I have flagged the console wiring fault, the maintenance access cover, the generator housing fracture, and the safety grid failure for immediate repair. I have also flagged the intake clerk's routing error for administrative review. I have reviewed my own conduct during the incident and found no procedural violations on my part. I followed protocol. I assessed the situation. I acted appropriately given the information available to me. The information available to me did not include Rowan. This is my final note on the matter, and I include it only because the review board will expect an instructor's assessment. In 11 cycles, I have trained recruits to survive predators. I have taught them to dodge, to block, to evade, to neutralize threats through skill, preparation, and training. Rowan neutralized a Tier 4 predator scenario in under 90 seconds. She had no training, no equipment, no apparent awareness that she was in danger at any point. She did it by falling down, tripping over things, and holding a piece of floor. I do not know what that means. I intend to find out. Greth, Vorathan, Senior Instructor Report Status. Under review. Trainee Rowan's file has been flagged. No one has told her why.